All right, y'all. It's one of my favorite times of the year. We have the playoffs happening. Of course, we have the play-in happening first, but I'm really excited for one specific team that I've been kind of just watching the whole year as one of my favorite players of all time is definitely on the team, and that's James Harden. And as you guys can guess from the title, the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, the Clippers are a very interesting team because from a lot of people's like just overall view of the team when they lost Paul George, you thought initially that well this team is basically done, it's over. But there's one thing that I always held on to is that Paul George never really understood where he was supposed to be on this team, and also he took away valuable minutes from pretty good role players like Ivica Zubac or Norman Powell, and even more now, Chris Dunn, who is also, I'm gonna just say a Chicago City great, but his presence on the team was not that great for the totality of the team. And so when you get rid of him, the same thing that Norman Powell said in the beginning of the year in the summer is that there's an addition by subtraction, and that there's going to be a lot more play for a lot more people and a lot more considerations and a lot more touches for other people than they would have gotten otherwise. And so Paul George, and we all know what happened when he went to the Philadelphia 76ers, Paul George is basically the guy that was holding them back, unfortunately, because I love Paul George's game. I mean, I know this year has not been the best year, and honestly, he went to a terrible team. But, Paul George's game for majority of his career has been awesome to see. And so it's kind of sad to see the way that he's going out. But, hey, for the Clippers, it makes sense. It really helps them in the long run because now they have a lot more players that are able to contribute at a very efficient way than they did before. And that's why they are one of the most underrated teams in the playoffs, but just been underrated just the whole season. I think, can we just talk about how James Harden took a team that was basically missing their other superstar and kept them afloat. He was basically the Iron Man of the team, played for majority of the games during the season, and Kawhi Leonard had the ability to kind of just let his mind go to ease as James Harden got this team to be, I think at highest was ranked number 2 or 3 in the West, and just kept them within that range. And that range, of course, is determined by a lot of the other teams who's playing as well as they are. But when you take from just the fact that they lost one of their big superstars from, in the offseason, you would think that this team would not be exactly the way that they are right now. And so James Harden took this team, put it on his back, and said, hey, me and Ivica Zubac are going to go crazy, and we're going to basically make this team a great team. One of the things that I didn't expect for this team to be great in was defense, but they got some pretty good players to buy in. And I think one of those players that you really got to think about is Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn is basically their defender for many of their small guards, so people who are basically like 1 to 2, and you can kind of put him on a 3, but he's not really that effective on a 3. But he is a ball hawk, and he's always been like that type of guy. But he's never been the guy that you would kind of rely on, especially when it comes to the offensive end. But he's doing even better at that. And then you still get decent minutes from Ben Simmons, even though Ben Simmons probably plays around 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. He comes in for very few times during the game. His impact is very minimal. But then again, it's all about the totality of the team. The totality of the team is way better, and everybody's able to contribute. And the biggest person who's been a contributing factor outside of James Harden and Kawhi Leonard is Ivica Zubac, because Zubac has basically just elevated his game to a whole nother level. He always had post moves, and he was always a downhill threat, but he's just been able to kind of take advantage of the space that is created from James Harden's gravity, everybody else being able to shoot, and Kawhi Leonard as well. He's basically able to have a one-on-one capacity for a lot of mismatches if there is a mismatch on a pick and roll. But also because there's a lot more emphasis on James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, teams have to structure their lineups to kind of facilitate towards that. And it's hard to do, guard James Harden and Kawhi Leonard while also seeing somebody else's a rising star amongst their ranks and still game plan for them. And Ivica Zubac doesn't do anything out the ordinary. He's pretty much like their cleanup guy / their guy that's got enough skill to give him some buckets, but also he's just a good team player. Doesn't do too much, doesn't do a little. He does great at what he's asked to do. And so you have that as well. And like I said before, you would not have expected that for a team that lost one of their best superstars. You would expect typically that the team gets worse. However, this team got better in a year where everybody actually played pretty well. And so you're seeing this Clippers team and you're seeing how well that they're doing. And then you saw in the last game where they basically have to play, either they're going to be in the play-in or they're going to have a first round being in the playoffs and have that week off. And you saw the difference. You saw the major difference in that game and how both stars were able to play and how they were able to contribute, while also not seeing that they were doing too much outside of James Harden, of course, throwing away the ball sometimes and some really bad turnovers. But nevertheless, they played great. That's why they're one of the most dynamic teams, but also one of the most dangerous teams. Because if you look at the seedings actually kind of goes in their favor a little bit. I will take them over the Nuggets. I think if you are the Clippers, and I would assume that Ty Lue would do something similar to this, I would face guard everybody that is not Jokic. You guys have to do constant switches. Make sure you guys don't get back cuts or anything like that, because the Nuggets are not in the best space mentally right now, I believe. I feel like they might be trying to build everything to get closer together. Like I said before in my other video, it's hard to build a new system, when you fire a coach a week before the playoffs, and you're just basically gonna have to run his system in order for you guys to basically just to do what you guys have done the whole year. So it doesn't really make sense. But regardless, Jokic is having the greatest year any player has ever had in the NBA ever. So what do you do when you're going against that caliber of player? One, you have to take away MPJ. You have to take away Michael Porter Jr. in any capacity. Two, you have to take away any three-point corner shots for Aaron Gordon and also take him away from the extended dunker spot. And then three, you have to lock down Jamal Murray. If you can do that consistently and they have the lineup to do so, the last thing is leave Ivica Zubac to die. Basically, you leave him to die, leave him on that island against Jokic. Jokic has to score 60 points in order for them to win if they are able to shut down those three top caliber players. And then especially if you let Russell Westbrook kind of play his game and make the mistakes that he's prone to making, well, then you have a winning recipe. But in order for them to actually win, they have to let Ivica Zubac die in the post. I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be a terrible thing to see because Ivica Zubac is a great defender, but I don't know if he has the chops to stop Jokic from scoring back to back. But they do have the ability and the lineups to stop everybody else, in my opinion. And then the biggest hurdle against them will be the Oklahoma City Thunder if they make it out their first round. Because I think the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're kind of tied in the way that they play, where they both have great defenses. So every game is going to be a low-scoring game. But the way that they play on their ISO-heavy ball is really hinged on the fact that they can make space for other players to make wide-open shots and the ability to make those wide-open shots. Now, that's the thing about the Thunder. With the way that Shea plays, it's really difficult to, especially when they're down. They're good when they're up. But when they're down or in between, they do have players that are able to kind of just give them a boost. But when the offense slows down and there's really nobody else that can really give them a bucket, they're going to have to ask Shea to make 8 points in a row before they can get some type of groove. And then, of course, they have great defense and they can rely on their defense. But offensively, the Thunder can sometimes struggle against really good teams, especially really good defensive teams. But even still, I believe that the Clippers are just a little bit worse than them. But I would not be surprised if they're able to take them out in a 7-game, 6-game series, if they can get past the Nuggets. And then once you get past that, I'll take them out the West easily. I think that they're better than the Lakers. I think they're better than the Timberwolves. I think they're better than the Rockets, the Warriors, the Grizzlies, whoever you might want to put in there. I think they're better than all of those teams, especially even with the Lakers being able to have Luka. I think that the injury for LeBron James is definitely going to be a little bit something that you should watch out and look out for, because I have had injuries similar to that. That is not an injury where it gets better within a week. That is an injury where you re-aggravate it depending on if it's fully healed or not. And once you re-aggravate it, you don't know when you're actually back and ready to go until you've taken an extended time of rest. So I'm a little bit half 50-50 on the Lakers right now, but I'm going to tell you right now, the best team to watch out for, the most aggressively dominant team, underrated team, is definitely the Los Angeles Clippers. And I'm super excited to see what this Western Conference got in store for us, because, man, if James Harden plays the way that he plays, Kawhi Leonard plays the way that he plays, we might see a very interesting Western Conference Finals.